Hello, good day. I'm Dr. Douglas Street. I'm a medical doctor, and I want to discuss with you transitioning to a plant-based diet. Now, a plant-based diet has many different benefits, and of course, this series that we're doing on diabetes remission, it's an important part of achieving this goal. Then there are some misconceptions about what a plant-based diet should look like, and we want to look at that as well. Now, the transition is a very tricky thing to do for many people because persons grow up eating meat for the most part and they have gotten used to eating meat. So making that transition can be very tricky. I just want to see if I can give you some pointers as to some things you can do to make that transition successful. Now, there are different approaches that can be used to achieve diabetes remission. But I would say that the going plant-based is probably the most sustainable way of, of achieving and maintaining diabetes remission. So it's very important for what we're trying to achieve. Now, there are some misunderstandings about what a plant-based diet should look like, and so it is not always healthy. Not everything that is plant-based is healthy. So we're not just going to be looking at eating foods that are from plants because they're from plants per se, but we're looking at the healthier ones so that we can achieve the goals that we want to achieve. Your diet should be not just plant-based, but it should be anti-inflammatory to ensure that you get the most benefits. So one of the first steps that you need to take in this transition is educating yourself. And you should try to learn about plant-based nutrition and learn about nutrition on a whole. You need to learn about portion sizes, and you need to learn about how to combine different proteins, how much proteins you need to get. All of those things are important for you to make this transition because when you eat meat, there are certain things that you don't really have to be so concerned about, um, in terms of getting certain nutrients. But you have to be intentional when you're pursuing a plant-based diet. An example of this would be, you may need to get certain supplements. You may need to ensure that there are certain combinations in your diet. So it's important to learn about this and where to get your proteins from. These things are important to learn about. So make sure that you read about it or look at other resources to learn about plant-based nutrition. It's also important to learn about plant-based recipes and learn what foods are available in your area. You may be in an area where you don't have as much variety, or you may need to replace certain things. So you need to learn about what is available to you in your area to ensure that you make that transition successfully as well. You need to learn about cooking practices. What are the better ways to prepare your foods? So some cooking practices are not as healthy as others, so you need to learn about what is best, and also learn what the latest research is saying about diabetes remission or nutrition. So keep up with the latest information to ensure that you stay on track and you achieve the outcomes that you want to achieve. The next thing that you would need to do is to seek a professional to get some proper guidance. You may need to speak to your doctor about it if your doctor is knowledgeable about it. Some doctors are not. You may need to speak to a dietitian or a nutritionist, especially one that is experienced in diabetes remission. Again, probably most nutritionists and dietitians are not familiar with this process. So if you could get some guidance from one who has experience, that would be better. If not, then you may need to learn more about that transition and apply the information to get from a dietitian to the information that you would have researched on your own. Having that professional guidance will help us to personalize, our diets and so on, rather than using general information. And they may need to know, they may have that information in terms of what's available in that area, so that will help them to give you, specific guidance so that you make the right choices. It also helps you with goal setting, and goal setting is not just about achieving certain milestones in terms of your sugar control, but in terms of the things that you're trying to do, your actions. Ensure that you're pursuing certain actions, and to set goals as to when you want to achieve those specific actions that will take you along your journey. And of course, follow up, so that you can get that support and guidance in case you have any stumbling blocks. Then this person will be able to give you the guidance that you need. Now, one of the things that can help the process to be easier is to do a gradual transition. So rather than switching from having your red meat and chicken and all that, switching all the way to just having a plant-based diet, you can do a gradual transition. So, for example, in my case, what I did was I first switched from having red meats to just having white meats, and then moving from having white meats to just having fish, and then I moved from having meat twice a day to having it once a day. So I did it over a period of time. So that's one thing that you can do, and you can actually do it gradually, and can do that over a shorter period of time. I actually took years before I made my transition, but in the case of a person who's trying to achieve remission, that would not really be the best approach. You may want to do it over a period of a month or so, or a few weeks, so that you can start getting the benefits of the plant-based diet as quickly as possible. But doing it in a gradual way, it makes the process easier. Another thing that you can do is you can start adding more plant-based proteins to your diet. So rather than just having meat-based protein, so like your chicken, you can actually add some peas to that. You can even have some stewed peas and have some beans mixed in with your stewed peas. So you're gonna have, in that case, less meat, and you're gonna have some plant-based proteins along with that. So that is one thing that you can do. It doesn't have to be combined together. It can be separate as well. But that way you automatically reduce the amount of animal-based proteins and increase the amount of plant-based proteins. That may prove helpful as a transition. That's not something that I'd really want to encourage persons to do long term, if they're trying to achieve diabetes remission, right? It's also important to to consider doing switching out of certain things that you're already having. So let us say you normally have your brown stew chicken. You can make brown stew chickpeas, or you can switch out your curry chicken with curry chickpeas. So you know how to make curry already, so you know how to make a brown stew. So all you do is just switch out from a animal-based protein to a plant-based protein. So you don't have to learn a new recipe, you just do a switch there, and of course that can make it a lot easier for you. Now you can also, it's important to ensure that you balance your proteins as well, right? Now, when you are replacing your animal-based proteins, it's best to go with plant-based proteins. Now, some persons, for example, will try to switch their chicken with callaloo, or with cabbage. Now, that's not a good replacement, right? Cabbage and callaloo are vegetables. They are not really good sources of proteins. So ensure that you make the proper switch from, say, as a chicken to chickpeas or to red peas, black peas, nuts, and so on. Make sure that you understand what are good sources of plant-based proteins, and don't believe that you can just use vegetables to replace proteins. That is not a good replacement. It's not healthy for you to do that replacement. Not to say it is unhealthy to eat cabbage or callaloo, but not as a replacement for your animal-based proteins. You should also ensure that you get all your essential amino acids. These amino acids are the building blocks of your proteins, and there are certain of them that are essential. 9 of them are essential, and you must ensure that in any given day you get all the essential amino acids. Now, the reason why this is important is that most plant-based proteins don't have all the essential amino acids. So, for example, your chickpeas or your black peas don't have all the essential amino acids. So you'd have to, on that day, make sure that you get some nuts or some seeds. So, for example, your almonds. So it doesn't have to be at the same meal, but ensure that on any given day you have your peas and beans and your nuts and seeds. You can get around that by having plant-based proteins that are complete, and examples include soy. Soy is complete, it contains all the essential amino acids. Quinoa also has them, chia seed, buckwheat. These are sources of complete plant-based proteins, so you don't need to combine a bit with anything to ensure that you get all the essential amino acids. Even if you have, let us say, peas and rice, rice actually helps to balance the peas, so you don't necessarily have to have nuts in that case. Not saying that you shouldn't, because nuts provide with other important nutrients that you should be getting anyway, but it's just to ensure that you don't need to do it to ensure you get all the essential amino acids. Now, one of the challenges that some persons have is the taste, right? And of course, you will have to get used to having a diet without meat. And some persons are not willing to do that. But for those who are, what you can do is just, first of all, commit yourself to this diet, right? Because it is good for you. You can also use herbs and spices to ensure that your food tastes good, right? And there are some persons who are very good at this. Sometimes persons may prepare plant-based meats, and somebody may eat it and not even realize that there's no meat in it, right? So some persons are very good at that. It's something that you have to learn over time. So don't be daunted by that. And there are certain herbs you can use, like basil and cilantro, rosemary, certain spices like allspice, cinnamon, turmeric. You can season up your food properly to ensure that you get all of that flavor that you want, so that your food is attractive to the taste buds. But one thing you must keep in mind is that meat is addictive. It does have something in it called heme, which is addictive. So sometimes persons may initially not feel well because of their attempts to come off meat, and they may think that they are losing certain nutrients. That's not really the problem. It's like a person who is overcoming an addiction, right? And sometimes those feelings that you have, it's not because you're not getting nutrients, but because you've stopped having you could say, a drug that you're addicted to, and your body is kind of rebelling. So you have to ensure that you understand that, and not think that you have to go back to the meat because you're missing out on important nutrients. There's no need for you to do that, and there are always ways and means to ensure that you get all your proper nutrients on a plant-based diet. It's also important to ensure that you get healthy fats in your diet, and I can tell you from personal experience. I remember the first time that I went on a plant-based diet, I lost a lot of weight, and I'm not so much of a big person, so I was not looking very good at all. But I realized that I was losing, when you take out meat out of your diet, you also lose a a lot of fat, and fat is an important part of a diet. It's not necessarily unhealthy thing. I had to learn to add back the fat that I was losing, and there are ways of doing that. You can have foods which contain a lot of fats, like nuts, as we mentioned before. Nuts, because fats are an important part of the diet. It helps as it's a good source of energy. It helps you to keep full for longer periods of time, so you don't eat as frequently. There are certain vitamins that are fat soluble. So and there are also essential fats that are anti-inflammatory. So fats are not always bad, and it's important to ensure that they're in a diet. You can also add oils to your food. It's something that I personally have to do because my metabolic rate is very high. So you can add oil to your food, but choose the healthy ones, like the virgin oils, like especially you know, coconut oil or olive oil, virgin ones. Those ones are better because they have not been affected by heat. So it is important to get that. And of course, avocado and coconut, those are also good sources of healthy fats, especially in their raw state. It's important to make sure that they're raw. When oil is cooked, it tends to become unhealthy. So ensure that whatever oil you use, that it is unheated to maintain the benefits that you're looking for. Another thing to keep in mind is meal preparation and planning. Now, when you are switching to a plant-based diet, it's important to remember that that this may not be available to you as readily. For example, you go on the road, you're hungry. A lot of places don't really offer vegetarian options or vegan options, so you'll have to keep that in mind. Um, you know, when you're going to work, for example, you may need to bring your food to work, or you may need to identify somewhere where you can you know, access these kind of foods. The most of the foods that are being sold are not plant-based, so so you may have to keep that in mind and plan for your meals to ensure that you don't get to a point where you're so hungry you have to grab something that is unhealthy. So when you plan your meals, then and you prepare them, then you're less likely to make unhealthy choices. So make sure you plan your meals, and meal planning starts from you go to the supermarket. So of course, ensure that when you're buying your food, that you choose the healthy ones. You may need to have certain foods that don't need any preparation. So so all of those things you have to keep in mind, so that you may come home late and you don't have time to go through that whole process of cooking. Then you can you can put something together that is healthy, that doesn't need a lot of preparation. You may need to prepare certain things before time. So for example, you can do bulk cooking. So you may cook a lot of peas, for example, or other types of foods, and you can use small portions as time goes by so that you can have some variety. So all of those things are important. So preparation and planning is important in maintaining is that it helps to keep you on the right track. Another thing that you more than likely will need to do is to take some supplements. This may be a little bit controversial for some people, but it's normally recommended that when you're on a totally plant-based diet, so no meat at all, no animal-based foods, you may need to get some B12. I personally take B12 vitamin to ensure that that I'm not missing out on that nutrient. So that is something you may need to do, because plant-based foods generally don't supply B12, and B12 is important for many different functions in the body. So that is something that you may need to get. All right. You may need to also get some vitamin D, I guess, depending on your situation, because there are some animal-based foods like milk, which are fortified with vitamin D, and especially if you're not getting enough sunlight, or if you have a problem with manufacturing vitamin D in your body, then you may need to get some supplementation, because what you used to get before, it may not be you may not be having that anymore. Omega-3 may also be very useful, because this is anti-inflammatory, and it may help you with maintaining good health. So ensure you get some guidance where this is concerned to ensure that you are on the right track, getting all the important nutrients that you need. Now, when you go out, it may pose a challenge when you are on a plant-based diet, right? There are certain places that send prepared foods that don't have vegan options, or the ones that are available are not really properly balanced. That's something which I've had to navigate at times. Sometimes you go to somewhere and say, oh, you have been asked me if I have vegetarian options. What they have is just something which contains vegetables like salad and so on, not really a balanced diet. So you may have to, when you're going out, you may have to go online and see what the menus are to see what they have. Sometimes you can even bring something along. For example, you may bring along some black beans, and you may ask them to replace, something on the menu with the black beans that you brought. That's something that some restaurants are willing to do. Sometimes you might need to bring your own food when you have occasions where you have a lot of people who are eating. They may not have vegetarian options. So you can bring your food. You can even bring enough to share with other persons to let them see that plant-based foods can be tasty and it's something that they can consider. Right? Ensure that you communicate your dietary preferences with those persons who you're going to be going out with. Some persons think it's strange not to eat meat. So some persons may look down on you because of choosing that lifestyle. So that is something that you may need to prepare for. Some persons, don't understand that a plant-based diet is a healthy diet and you can get all the nutrients that you need from it. So you may need to mentally prepare to respond to persons and help them to understand that this is a healthy diet and you're doing it because of your health. Some persons do it for other reasons, and that is quite fine, of course. But make sure you communicate your dietary preferences so persons don't assume that you're a meat eater and may prepare only foods that you are not willing to have. Now, as you pursue your journey, you will need to reevaluate and adjust, your approach. So ensure that you do some assessment of your efforts, to make sure that you're on the right track. I'll give you from my experience when I started, on my journey. Some time ago, I realized that I was losing weight, even though I was eating the same amount of food that I was having, but because of my metabolism, I had to add more calories to what I was having. So as I said, I started having to add oil to my foods, to ensure that I'm getting enough calories. So you may need to look at your situation and make adjustments accordingly, which is why it's important to get some guidance when you're on this journey, to ensure that any obstacles that you come upon, you're able to manage those obstacles in a way that will not compromise the results that you're getting, right? And so you have to be flexible and make changes accordingly that can help you to achieve your goal. Now, on this journey, it's important to understand that we are human beings, and human beings make mistakes. And making mistakes, it doesn't mean that you're failed. You have to learn to navigate those things. It's a learning process. So as you learn about it, you make adjustments accordingly, but always keep moving forward. It's important to do that. And it's also important to celebrate your achievements, so you start exercising, you can celebrate your achievement, and of course you choose a healthy way to celebrate that achievement. Your blood sugars come down to a certain level, where you want it. You have started getting better sleep. You have started to incorporate more plant-based proteins into your diet. Celebrate your achievements. And it's important also to forgive yourself when you make mistakes, and I say just keep moving forward. Ensure that you have support from persons, whether it's from church or whatever other group that you have, your family. You can be a part of a support group, and these can help to guide you in making better choices, and also to remain committed to what you are trying to achieve. So it's important to celebrate, forgive, and to get support. Now, as we wind down this presentation, I just want to look at 1 Corinthians 10 and verse 31 from the New King James Version. It says, "No temptation has overtaken you, except such as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able. But with the temptation will also make a way of escape, that you may be able to bear it." Now, making that transition to a plant-based diet, it may be challenging, more so for some than others, and you'll be facing many temptations. Sometimes internal, you wanting to go back to what you had before. Sometimes it may come from other persons. They may want to pressure you to do things that are not good for you. But one thing that this text is telling us, that God will give us the strength to overcome those temptations. He'll ensure that the temptation is not too strong that he can't overcome it. And he'll always make a way for you to escape the trap of that temptation, right? So it's important to have faith in God. And it doesn't matter if it is when it comes down to your diet or anything else. God always provides a way for us to escape the temptations that we face. So we can call on him. He has promised that he will stand by you. He'll give you strength. He'll give you the knowledge. He'll give you that way of escape, so that you don't have to suffer the results of yielding to that temptation. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.